Now being 6 o'clock, I call the September 16th meeting of the Appomattox County Board of Supervisors to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by Mr. Carter with the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, hallowed be thy name. Dear Lord, we thank you for life itself. We thank you for having the opportunity to live each day as you grant us that privilege. We also thank you, dear Lord, for all the blessings that you have given to us, each one of us. We thank you for our Public Safety Committee. We thank you for our armed forces. And we thank you that it was an erroneous shot yesterday on Mr. Trump. Dear Lord, be with us, guide us, give us wisdom. All this we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
You see it? All right. Relying on all of you to have looked at the agenda, is there any changes or additions to the agenda? If not, I'll accept the motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Reverend Jones's motion to approve the agenda, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Hips has seconded. Discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, agenda is approved as submitted. I want to thank you all for showing up tonight. It's a pleasure to see so many here. At this time, as we provide for the board to allow the citizens an opportunity to address the board on issues of importance to the citizens, no individual citizen shall be permitted to address the board for more than 3 minutes. Do we have any appearances tonight?
No.
Nope, no appearances. All right, moving right on. We'll move into the scheduled appearances. First up is Miss Mariel Fowler, CVPDC Transportation Planner, and Miss Kelly Hitchcock, CVPDC Director of Planning, has requested to appear with Ford to introduce the Central Virginia Safety Action Plan. Ladies, come on up.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you folks tonight. So I'm here to present information about the Central Virginia Safety Action Plan. The CVPDC applied for federal funding through USDOT through their bipartisan infrastructure law to develop a safety action plan. We received $270,000 in federal dollars to be matched by $70,000 by the CVPDC to develop what's called a safety action plan. And now I'll talk about what that is here moving forward. And let's make sure I can see. Let's see, down is next. There we go. So we'll talk about what this plan is. Again, funding from the infrastructure bill. The purpose is to look at and reduce fatal accidents and serious injury accidents along our roadways. Sometimes people will hear what's called Vision Zero, and that's not to suggest that you're going to get rid of all accidents, but it's focusing on fatal and high injury accidents in the area, and we'll present data on that moving forward. Again, the outcome is to look at tools and strategies to make our roadways safer and to eliminate those accidents that are causing deaths and serious injuries. And some statistics for our region from 2018 to 2023, there were 220 fatalities and 1,680 serious injuries, and 21,126 total accidents. So here's just some quick data, and you can see in the blue, those are your serious injuries, and that's a good thing. The serious injuries are falling over time, and that's using strategies. We all now see the rumble strips that are along the roadways, so when you go over on the side, you hear that bum, 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 and right, to alert people have been developed for safety reasons, and those strategies are working. But when you see 225 serious accidents and you see 32 fatalities, it's about reducing that, and ideally getting that to zero. And that's what the safety action plan is focused on. And that's what we'll be looking at moving forward. In here, I just want to point out, of those accidents, 25 were pedestrians in the region, 19 motorcyclists, 1 bicyclist, and 175 vehicles. And what is, I guess, alarming is that of 6 of those motorcyclist fatalities alone took place in 2023. And so we'll sort of talk about the safety action plan and how it's looking at a various range. So what we have here, it's called the safe system approach. And what that is, it's both the federal highway and VDOT through VDOT's 2026 Strategic Highway Safety Plan and Virginia's Vulnerable Roadway User Safety Assessment that they did in 24 and 26. And the idea of the systemic safe system approach is that on the outside, you see these 6 principles of the outside ring, and it's about everyone is a roadway user, everyone has responsibility, safe street speeds matter, how you reduce those speeds, safe roadways, and redundancy and information are all the things that have to be developed and interwoven in the way we get messaging and safety to promote safety within our roadways. So we're going to use this, what's called the safe system approach. We'll hear that a lot. Whoop. There we go. And again, this is basically pointing out the same thing, that as we look at safe system approach, you're looking at all the roadway users, those that are pedestrians, bicyclists, senior citizens, those with special needs, transit riders, motorcycle riders, and each one having a different need, but all need safe roadways, safe vehicles. And we have our vehicles with information, right, that beeps to let us know that folks are coming. And so all of those strategies and technologies are part of the safe system approach as well. Safe speeds, post-crash care. Part of the safe system approach is really working with our police and sheriff and integrating the way that information is brought and data when accidents do take place. So these are all the components that are going to be looked at over the version of this Central Virginia Safety Action Plan that will take about 10 months. And the components of the Safety Action Plan, what's important here is every safety action plan in the country will follow a similar methodology. That doesn't mean that it's not unique. It doesn't mean it's not developed within the unique needs and tailored to each region. But there is a requirement of these 8 requirement factors that will be considered in developing a safety action plan. And the value of having this safety action plan is that a region that has developed a safety action plan and a locality that has adopted a safety action plan is eligible for federal funding through the infrastructure bill to assist with construction. And then also, obviously, it is an arrow in your quiver as you go after those VDOT dollars, those smart scale dollars that we're all used to, putting in those applications. And so I'm going to talk there a little bit. I'm going to come back to on the leadership commitment and goal setting, and then the safety analysis. I'm going to give some unique data for Appomattox. And I do want to point out we have a steering committee. And that steering committee, we've asked state police representative from our area. So we've asked your emergency management folks. We've reached out to be invited to share information from your schools so they can talk about really what you're seeing and uniquely challenge on your roadways in Appomattox. So I want to go here. This is the High Injury Network. Our consultants, EPR, and then Kimberly Horn. What you see there, you'll get a better map here moving forward. Those are mapped areas that are called Tier 1 and Tier 2 where there are accidents. Tier 1 being the top 1% of accidents in the state, and Tier 2 being the top 5%. And in Appomattox County, there are 31 miles of roadway that falls into that Tier 1 and Tier 2 high injury network. And it's that high injury network, specifically those areas within the 31 miles that have had accidents in the fatal or serious category that this study is focused on. So what you have here is this is unique to Appomattox and that high injury data, and that is a lot further than I realized. I can't read. With the bright red being the accidents, they're called A, and for each one of those locations, information is provided. What happened in that accident? What type of accident? What were the conditions? Was it raining? That type of thing. And at the bottom there you see the source crash analysis dashboard. I will send all of you the link so you can look specifically at this data that is unique to Appomattox County. And equally important, which is hard for you to see there, but again, I'll send this to you, is that all of those accidents have different conditions, right? Some of the accidents are impaired drivers. Some are youth drivers. Some was rainy conditions. And so when you're having an accident and it's because of an impaired driver, the solution to that problem isn't in engineering, right? That didn't mean the roadway didn't work. It meant that the people on that roadway didn't respect the way they needed to do it. So that gets into that safe system approach. And part of the solutions for impaired drivers is more campaigns about not driving impaired. And so that's why through this study, we're going to come up with recommendations to match the type of accidents. And then again, this is very smart for you guys to see, but we'll send this to you. What is on this slide are the top accident areas unique to Appomattox County, and it shows the engineers have done an analysis based on the ranking of those locations, and then this study will look at those through the steering committee and through the guidance of Johnny and other stakeholders to evaluate these locations. And again, this will be done over the course of this study. And then I want to go back at the beginning where I showed the components of the safety action plan, and the top portion was leadership, commitment, and goal setting. And I sort of highlighted that. That is a component of the safety action plan. Remember I said that when a safety action plan is developed, a locality that adopts that safety action plan or makes some motion or resolution to a commitment of reducing accidents is then eligible at some point in the future, should they desire to do so, to apply for federal funding to get construction dollars or pilot dollars to implement projects. And what's important is that commitment is really what you see down there at the bottom is whereas the Virginia Strategic Highway Safety Plan sets a vision for 0 deaths and serious injuries and a goal to reduce roadway fatalities and serious injuries by half by 2045. That is a state commitment. A locality can make a statement similar to that, which is we're going to bring to you guys, right? We said we have the number of accidents for Appomattox County. So after we go through this study, there's an opportunity. We want to come back to Appomattox County, should you be willing to do so, to ask you to make a commitment to say, Appomattox County, we commit to reducing, or again, the goal to reducing serious accidents in half by 2045, and then what that looks like. So again, that is a component, and we can tailor various resolutions. Different localities have created different resolutions, with the simplest one being to basically accept the state's goal to reduce serious and high injury accidents by 50% by 2045. So that's something we'll be back to you, and now I'll give you the timeline. So what's next? Here we are. We're going to have focus group meetings in all the localities, inviting folks, again, schools, police officers, emergency management staff, nonprofits that are dealing with folks maybe that need access, social services, that type of thing. Then we're going to have a public survey and an outreach campaign asking the public to share where they might have some concerns on the roadway. Because while we can give you accident data, every one of those points means there was an accident and a police officer took the information. We all know that there's close calls and areas where you see things where it might be congested that don't make it on a map dot. And so we want that opportunity to hear about those things from the public as well. And very important, especially from residents that don't always share their needs. Maybe some low-income population, and that's a real target of this project as well. So then our consultants in October and November with VDOT and the stakeholders will be looking at some of those accident locations to consider some engineering solutions. And then we'll have draft project recommendations that they'll be developing November through March. In March and April of '25, we'll come back to each locality to share what we heard, what we've learned, and to see whether you want to make that leadership commitment. And then we will have the final plan to the PDC and the TPO, and then we can come back to the localities. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time. And thank you for your.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Carter.
Kelly, let me ask you this. I think it's hard to tell the accidents that have happened that's contributed to cell phones. Now, that right there, every time that I'm en route to Lynchburg or Farmville, probably 6 out of 10 cars that I pass, there it is. It's them darn blessed cell phones. And I used to be one of them, too, until I got the devil scared out of me coming through Concord. I didn't even realize I ran a red light. But that right there, I think, would really enhance your program. And I don't know if you can get Virginia's finest to start ticketing these people and looking for that or not. It's just like these left-handed drivers, as I call them. Now, the two marquees up on 460 on the bypass, but unless you were passing somebody, get back in the right lane where you belong, okay? Might as well be talking to the walls. But I think that's two areas that really needs to be looked at and adjusted and somehow put flyers out concerning that.
And I went back to this because, again, where it talks about that is the data. And again, I will provide you guys the link because it's an interactive link. When you go to Crash Dashboard, and we'll send that to you, you will specifically get Appomattox data. You can hit each one of those points. That's a breakdown of those accidents. And you will see one of them is where someone was looking at a cell phone. And you are exactly right. That's what it talks about, that safe system approach. That, again, people using the cell phones is not a roadway engineering problem. It is a public, a public information education. And so it is the opportunity to develop targeted information and targeted opportunities. And so we'll be bringing those things back. And And we welcome the opportunity for, that's what might come out of the plan, is that the PDC and the region in partnership with local sheriffs and local police, to have a campaign on, putting your phone down and that type of thing. So we're open to what we learn and then what we hear from residents and what their challenges and needs are, and then working with the stakeholders and our consultants to bring back some good solutions moving forward. But education, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the board? Now, my only comment is after over 25 years of state and federal government experience and now local, the government is great on doing surveys and plans and saying we need to do this and we need to do that. But with my law enforcement, we all know DARE program, has it decreased drug usage? The, drunk drivers and all the alcohol abuse programs, have they ever reduced? Education hasn't seemed to be working. The only thing that seems to be working in my limited knowledge is the fact of having police officers out there to enforce, and people know if you speed through this area, you're gonna get a ticket, and they don't speed through that area. We need money for enforcement, not money for studies and grand plans. But thank you for your presentation.
Well, and I will say, I just want to point out that by having a safety action plan, a locality can then apply for programmatic dollars, just what you're talking about. That is, by having a safety action plan, you then open the opportunity to apply for direct dollars to implement those actions within your plan. So if your plan says that enforcement and those type of things is number one in your need, then that is where you can direct the dollars moving forward.
Because for us to say we wanna, we're gonna reduce accidents by 0 by 2045, I mean,
No, half.
all right, it's ridiculous for a government to make those kind of, it's just unrealistic. But thank you. Anything else? All right,
Thank you for your time.
you're up. All right, Mr. Van Oy, Public Safety Director.
Turn this off, Ace. Well, I just want to come to you guys today just to give you an update on the radio project. When I took over, that was probably a big item on the plate for me. I got some help here, George. He's been working very hard with the radio project. He's taken it on upon himself to do a lot of this work. We can go down through this list of things that we have updated and worked on, and I got some pictures on y'all's handouts there. We repaired and replaced the earth grounding throughout the building. This is at the U.S. Cellular site. The grounding was pretty lax there, and we found that it was one of the things that might have been causing a little bit of the problems that we were having. So George discovered this, and so we replaced most of the grounding there in that structure. And we put in some grounding rods, 4 in that structure. And I think they're like 10 foot long that we had to drive into the ground. He worked on the sheriff's, fire, the EMS, and the jail repeaters. And he fine-tuned those and cleared up some of the static and stuff that was in those channels. And we also had to replace, like on the hottest day of the year, the AC unit in that structure went out. And we had to, that was like on a Saturday or something, I called Susan on that, and we had to replace that. So that's what at the U.S. Cellular site. And with the monopole site, this is where they've done a lot of work at. And so we purchased a used shelter that we placed at that site. So George and his partner Dylan had to actually create a concrete pad for that site and for the shelter to set on. So they dug all that up and put the concrete in there and replaced it and put down the pad for that to sit on. And then they buried 4 rods there too, and he corrected me just a little while ago. They weren't 6-foot rods, they were 10-foot rods they had to drive into the ground. that makes a lot of difference. So when we get this shelter up and running, which we're still working on, it'll already be grounded and everything set up for that. And we did get a generator for that site, and it was donated to the county. And we also got a generator switch, which Outdoor and Equipment donated that to the county, and that's around $800, between $800 and $900 Outdoor Equipment donated to the county for this project. So right now, we did get a new repeater to replace the one countywide repeater that's housed there currently. The old housing that we're replacing had a lot of water seepage and stuff in there, and it damaged that repeater. But George kept that repeater running, and so now we just got to the point where we have to replace it. We've already purchased that repeater, we just have to install it. We purchased a new antenna. If you looked at the back page, you can see that new antenna going up on to the tower. And we got a company out of Roanoke to install that antenna, B2X. And the jail gave us a couple of inmates a couple of days, so we replaced all the gravel bedding in that shelter, in that compound where the antenna is housed. So we thank them for their assistance, because they worked pretty hard, and it was pretty hot those days that they were working. And then we've got that was the monopole site. And on the next page, you'll see where we've got the radio console installation at our office. Our old MC5500 was outdated, couldn't get parts for it anymore. And that was what we were scared to death about breaking in all these meetings and stuff we had about the radio project that we had before. So we replaced that MC5500 with a Kenwood system. It's a telex system. And I've got a picture of the front of that system in your booklet, in your package there. This system has come with, it's P25 capable, but we didn't purchase a license because that's the most expensive part of all these radio projects, is to get everything P25. So if we wanted to go that route, we can upgrade it, but it's tens of thousands of dollars just for that, and it doesn't serve that much of an advantage to us. The system also came with a touchscreen system, so the dispatchers are enjoying that part because they can just touch the screen and talk instead of having to look around for the third mouse that they have to use, because they have these mouses on their desk console. So that makes it a lot nicer for them. And another thing that came with this was a door lock. So now we can unlock our door without taking the dispatcher away from their desk just to do that. We had a door lock, but it was at a central location. Dispatcher still had to get up and go and do that. So the company put that on their screen for us. And it's a picture, a screenshot of the screen. And all of y'all are invited to the 911 Center to come by and see these items too. And a couple of y'all have taken through already. The Sheriff's Office have been advancing on their part of the project. They purchased 32 new portable radios. And y'all approved the grant, 25% was covered by the county. And so they have these up and operational. They're still trying to fine tune a couple of things on those radios, because at the end of the transmission, you still hear the squelches being held, but we're getting through that. And further down the line, L3 Harris is providing all this equipment. I mean, we're purchasing all this equipment from L3 Harris. So anytime they're replacing cars, the equipment in those cars, they want to purchase new equipment for those cars. And that's the way they've been doing over the years anyway. Did you want to say something?
I mean, the problem with squares is already corrected.
On some of the handhelds are still haven't gotten updated, so they're still working through that. Some future things we still have to work on our monopole sites is we're going to move the fire department repeater. They have a repeater that's in their fire station. We're going to move that to the monopole site and get that up and running there, which will give it a little bit extra coverage. And that's their backup repeater as well. The monopole site is mostly a backup site for the other channels in case it goes down. But we want to get more robust with that site and install another repeater there. Let's see. The U.S. cellular site, the sheriff's office radio antenna, we want to purchase another antenna and move that one up higher, but we still have to get permission from the U.S. cellular site people for us to be able to do that. And in doing that, that'll take a load off the other channels, because the sheriff will come off their antenna, and it will give a little bit more coverage for everyone that's up there, adding the additional antenna. And a lot of the cabling on that antenna is not the way it should be, and we're still working on getting somebody to come in and do that and get permission from U.S. Cellular site to move that cabling to where it needs to be. And at the end, we're diligently still looking for 1 to 2 new locations to increase our coverage. We've already purchased a shelter for that, and this is also on your page, the new shelter that we've purchased, and it's ready to go and be installed at the new antenna location once we get approval to go into those sites. And we'll have to get all the equipment that goes inside that shelter too. So that's all I have for you guys.
Any
Any
questions from the
questions?
board?
Mr. Chairman, just one. John,
Yes.
now that the dispatcher doesn't have to be his or her seat,
Yeah.
you got a camera there that can tell who is
Oh,
at
yeah.
there?
There's always been cameras there.
I thought that, but I
Yeah,
couldn't
there's always been
remember.
cameras there, so they're only letting people in that they know and see. If they don't, they got an intercom to actually talk to them. But to get up, they gotta get up, go talk to them on the intercom if they don't recognize the people. And I also wanted to introduce our new 911 Center Supervisor. Y'all heard about her last month, but I just want to bring her here to show her to y'all. So if y'all see her about, y'all can talk to her about her new job. Ashley, go over. And George is my technical expert, so
Well,
he's here if y'all have any technical questions.
Ms. Renoy, one question. That new Verizon tower that we just approved, how close, what's the proximity of that to the U.S. Cellular tower?
That new one's on, that's,
Across from high school?
yeah, so the US Cellular Tower is up on Tower Hill. So it's over close to the industrial park, it's Oakville Road, Tower Hill is up in there. So it's probably 3 miles or so, 4 miles.
I was wondering, because that's a
I don't know if that would.
230 foot, that's a 235-foot tower.
Yeah,
And I just wonder if that extra height would be a better place for the sheriff's antenna than,
well, we have to look at the distance above sea level and stuff, whether it's actually going to be.
just something I would just
elevation.
had in my
Yeah,
mind.
we've already talked about that some, so.
Good.
Because I think we got permission from them
Since
to be on that tower
We're,
if we need.
we have free permission, that was part of the deal. So,
So if it's US Cellular, we're going to come through, we can move everything over there. But that's a big expense too, so we'll have to just talk about that.
all righty. Thank you, Mr. Renoy.
You're welcome.
Let's move on to Miss Jeannie Foster, CSA Coordinator.
Good evening. I'm gonna hand out.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so for those of you who don't know me or don't see me regularly, I'm Janine Foster and I'm the CSA coordinator. In case anyone is not sure what CSA is, that stands for the Children's Services Act, which was a law enacted in 1993, which establishes a single pool of funding for children and their families that meet the eligibility criteria for supportive services. So I oversee the CSA program. I run the monthly family assessment and planning team meetings, report monthly to CPMT on all of the recommendations along with the expenditures that go along with that. So what I have for you guys, if you're following along on page 1, is an overview of our expenses for FY24. You're going to see that in the orange bar that goes across the top, and it's broken down by service placements. FY23 is in the blue bar. So as you can see, all expenses have increased, mainly private day education, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but that is not a service that comes through the FAP team like all regular services do. Private day education is determined by the IEP team. Those are children placed outside of Appomattox School District in a specific private day education per their IEP. So as you can see, that was over $1 million in total expenses in FY24, followed up by foster care and then community-based services, which are the services that keep the children in the community, keep the families here in Appomattox with foster care and residential treatment. Those children may be placed outside of Appomattox. Residential treatment, of course, is in a facility, and foster care, they're in the custody of DSS, so they could be in a foster home, a group home, a residential facility. So if you look below, I have kind of a snapshot of how many children we have served in FY24 compared to FY23. So you'll see in FY24, we served 97 children and youth. So that is 97 children that had at least 1 penny spent for CSA. I do want to point out, though, there's an additional 36 children that we reviewed that we did not spend CSA funds on. So a total of 133 children and families came through the FAPT and CPMT process, with 97 of them having funds spent. So on page 2, I have a breakdown. So each service type gets a match rate. There's a state share and a local share. So the top chart is going to show your local share of what that 2.6 million on page 1 is broken down by. So of course, again, private day education taking up the biggest chunk of our local share. Also, of course, in the state share. You'll see community-based services does use a large portion of money, but back in 2018, which is before I had come here, CPMT did set a goal to utilize the majority of community-based services, keeping children and families here in Appomattox, lower cost, higher match rates. So as you can see, if you're looking at the bottom bar, it's a tiny difference, but we did actually reduce the cost spent for residential treatment in FY24. So we are really hitting hard with trying to do community-based services, keeping the families here in Appomattox. If you look on page 3, it's a lot of wording. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I'm going to hit the high points. So up at the top, I have an example for everyone that a certain family or child can be served through different service types. So the example I'm using here is a child in foster care. So if a child is in foster care, they're utilizing foster care services, but they may also be utilizing community-based services. So they may be in a foster care placement, but receiving life skills coaching, mentoring, equine therapy, anything like that. Their family may also be getting community-based services. So whoever DSS has identified as their return home or permanency option may also be working community-based services. So we have one child or family, but they're kind of receiving things in multiple different service areas. So as you guys can see, we definitely have been increasing in our spending, and there's numerous reasons for that, but one is we're seeing a large increase in children served. So we served 97 in FY24. If you look back over previous fiscal years, it continues to increase. Private day education, like I mentioned before, we don't have any control over that. The IEP team determines that the child goes to private day, and then we have to fund that. So that is a large expense. Costs are going up every year. So every fiscal year, we renew vendor contracts, rates increase. private day education has gone up significantly. From fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24, we saw some provider rates go up over $100 a day. So that's, a giant cost. Some private days are $538 a day for these children to go to a private day school. So what we're working on is continuing to focus on community-based services, keeping children in the community. They're more cost-effective. They have a higher match rate. And then another thing that I have started working on with my FAP team and CPMT is monitoring service lengths. So we want a service to get in, get started, teach skills, and then be able to get out so that families aren't relying on the services for the long term, but they're also able to, gain the skills needed and become a better functioning family. So below that is just a little bit of a breakdown for an idea of how much different things cost. Community-based services are typically charged at an hourly rate, where foster care has multiple different charges. There can be a daily supervision rate, a monthly rate. It depends on where the child is placed. Residential treatment is majorly covered by Medicaid, but we do fund the education cost, which is a daily cost. And then, of course, private day education, as you can see, ranges from $222 a day to $538 a day, depending on the school. And those children do not go through the same FAP process that all of our other cases come through. And another thing, it's unpredictable how many children we will serve. It can change from month to month, week to week. There's no really way to predict how many children we may serve in a fiscal year. And then on page 4, you'll see 2 charts, and this is going to kind of give a good visual of how much private day costs compared to our other services. So your top chart, you're going to see the percentage of children and families that utilize each service placement type. So private day education covers 20% of the children we serve, but over $1 million of our spending. Where community-based services cover 54% of our children, but it's just about $500,000 of that 2.6 that we spent. Below breaks down that expenditure, so 41% of our expenses are private day education, but that's only 20% of the children we're serving. Community-based services is 21% of our expenses, but serves 54% of our children. And realistically, when we break this down every month, CPMT gets a similar chart. Private day is taken up at least 50% every month. And then page 5 is just a breakdown if anyone wanted to see. I submit financial reports every month to the Office of Children's Services through the state, and it breaks down each month what we spent in each category and brings us to that $2.6 million. So I know I threw a lot of information out there. Does anybody have questions on CSA or what we spent last fiscal year?
One question.
Sure.
Private day education, is that what is involved when the school district says we can't handle this child?
So the IEP team makes that determination that they cannot be best suited here in Appomattox schools, and it places them at one of these private days.
Any other questions from the board? Well, thank you very much for the informative report.
Thank you.
Mr. Jeff Shepard, Maintenance Supervisor.
Good evening, board and ladies. I figured I'd come through tonight and explain a little bit what we've been doing since 2 months ago. It makes it easier for me because I don't have to sit in the office, sit here with a pen and write things down. I can come here once or twice a month and let y'all know what's going on. Basically, you'll find there was some action behind the dispatch office. We installed a breaker assembly out there with the construction trailer and also to be used for like Railroad Festival, other activities out there in that courtyard where we got a big chain of extension cords and it's fused with a breaker for safety, sake back there. The treasurer's office, we don't got a whole lot going on in there. We're lucky, we'll get a phone call for a light bulb here and there and stuff like that, and we get by pretty easy on some of the buildings. Other buildings we get pretty intense on. Sheriff's office, we have an issue with the impound yard back there for the trustees back in the day. Their enclosure that they used to send people into, it's in the right of way of Dominion Power. So we're relocating the fence up closer to the building so we can get a truck in there to work on the transformers when the time comes, or if blown fuse. The registrar office, we've moved all the voting machines, no issue. Then we had to recount, moved all the voting machines, no issue. We're all good to go with the vote registrar office. They're happy with our work. It's in and out, and we're done in a couple hours, and it's history. The community center, we recently installed a secure door in the hallway down there for DSS. We're working on another back office right now for Shirley. Hopefully have that done end of the week. That'll be complete for her. The original DSS office, we went in and helped remove all the equipment into the Connex box for them for a day. Fortress Foundation came in. They're complete with all their work as far as on the building. We've had the new pads poured out back for all HVAC equipment. They started installing all that back in today. Hopefully it'll be done tomorrow. And then that way the school board has their heat and air, and the DSS will have their heat and air back up and running. Internally, we tore out all the paneling on the inside. All the ceiling tiles have been taken out. We're vacating the building to start back over, to put it back the way that we see fit for DSS to use the building all over again. Out at the park, we had praises at the last board meeting about the work that was done out there. One thing that came out with not with DSS, but at the park, was some people want to know, could we put a dog park in? Some people have high interest in the Frisbee golf stuff out there. We can make it a little bit better than what it is right now. There's some more land to be cleared and stuff like that to be cleaned up the woods, where we have a more secure area we can see through the woods with no hiding spots. And then we get on to our 20-year-old courthouse, which is starting to show a good bit of age right now. We have an ongoing project that these expansion joints are in the courthouse every 20 feet. It connects two pieces of pipe together. Well, being 20 years old, they're all going bad. They'll spring a leak. Probably 4 weeks ago, got a call Friday night. There was a major leak in the courthouse. I came back up here, and they're holding the cells, the first floor. There's an attorney's office in there. I had to drop the whole ceiling out to replace this junction, but I had to drain the whole courthouse, which takes about 4 or 5 hours. So we're there all weekend to replace one of these. There is actually roughly 52 expansion joints in the courthouse. They're not all this size, some are smaller. And then we have an ongoing thing here. This is a larger one. This actually goes on the rooftop. There is 38 valves like this that control the heat inside the courthouse. Well, guess what? 20 years old, there's a little O-ring in here that goes bad. It starts leaking. Now we got ceiling tiles in the floor the next morning. So we got an ongoing process as life lives on in the courthouse and all of our buildings. But I just want you all to see what we work with, what we deal with. We got a project we're probably going to do over Thanksgiving break that we have to replace 2 pumps and probably 12 of these at one time, and then put in some shut-off valves prior to these so that we don't have to keep draining the courthouse. When we drain the courthouse, it costs us probably roughly about $600 or $700 to replenish some glycol and get the unit up and running. The chiller on top of the rooftop, which makes all the cold water for our air conditioning and bounces out the heat, Of course, that's showing its age. So we're going to get ready to put new sensors to keep the calibration right and to keep the chiller running. The chillers, that's probably the most expensive thing in the county we have to deal with right now if we'd ever have to replace it. It's not going to be cheap. You're talking probably a couple $1 million to do replace it. Then we go on to the courthouse that's 132 years old. The construction has started. They have went inside. They have taken all the wainscoting down. They have taken all the paint off the walls. All the ceilings have been dropped down other than the main tin ceiling in the front part of the courthouse. Externally, they've started putting some drains in underneath the memorial where the memorial is going to sit. Later on this afternoon, they started taking all the brick up for the memorial to try to get the memorial moved, I would say, later part of this week or first part of next week to try to catch up and be on track. The biggest thing at the courthouse is we got to get people used to traveling to the courthouse a different way. We've got plenty of safety fences up and signs are coming in daily to put up for people, but it's still, they're used to the same old path that they've used forever. The front gate on Court Street is chained with the bolt, so if the fire have to get in there, they're going to take the bolt out and get the chain off. There is some fencing in front of the treasurer's office now that kind of restricts people from coming in towards the courtyard more, but it's an ongoing event. It's kind of interesting because people don't like to tell them that you can't walk through here. It's a safety zone, but they've done it for years. Well, they can't do it right now, so it's kind of interesting, but we'll get through it. But other than that, we got daily occurrences of light bulbs, toiletries. It's a daily maintenance thing, so I just figured I'd come before you and let you know what's going on. If you ever hear any rumors, any questions, just feel free to call me. If anything happens that's detrimental to the county or in one of our buildings, Susan knows it quickly, probably within 10 minutes. But we try to keep her at bay of what we're doing. If she has enough, and she hired us to do a job. That's it. That's us.
Mr. Carter?
Mr. Chairman, Jeff, one question, and I'm sure you've been asked this 16,000 times, and that is the appearance of the courthouse outside. Will that be painted in all proper?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it'll be brand new outside when it's said and done.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, they're steadily looking at everything daily on how to move machinery in and keep things moving, but it's all the site work first has to be done, and then you'll start seeing the exterior, probably from the cupola coming down, will be done. The big columns, we're looking at right now, how we're going to maybe remove the columns and hold the structure up, you know what I mean, so they can do a good job on the ductwork up front. It's coming along. It's moving along. Everybody says slowly, but they're making the right move when they make the move is the big thing. There's so many unknowns out there in the grounds, so many unknowns on that, that type of an older building, but it'll be slow and steady.
Mr. Chairman, just appreciate you. Appreciate you spending your weekends doing things sometimes, being on call and all that.
We're on
And,
call 24/7.
I think you're the first person that ever brought illustrations in. I think
Well, I
you
mean-
missed the calling as a shop teacher or something.
It's the only way you could really, I could say and talk about it all day, but until you see it.
Yeah.
We actually have, when we go to replace this, two of the ladies' bathrooms, the ceiling has to come out of those bathrooms for us to do our work. It's just a foresight on somebody's planning that didn't put access to us, so we have to take the ceilings out, do our job, put the ceilings back in. And hopefully, 20 years from now, I'll make it so the next person will have an access panel to go do his job. But that's all I can do for him.
Any other questions?
Just want to thank you.
Ask him what's on top of the cupola.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, question. What's on top of the cupola?
Now, I believe it's a little dog up there, but that little wind vane will be coming down, and it'll be handed to me as far as the same with the bell, and we're going to put a bearing up there in that little thing, so it spins for quite a long time without having any issue.
I have a story on the Dale too. I've researched it.
Really?
Oh, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, that's gonna be in the lobby of the new build.
Very interesting.
So we're gonna bring it down, so it never gets rang, so we might as well bring it down where people can see it.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, so we have some ideas in our head how we're gonna try to bring some history back to the courthouse. And we found some other tokens that be available to see as the build keeps going and things gets discovered. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. All right, next we go into action items. First item is staff requests. So we authorize them to advertise and schedule a public hearing for October 21st to receive public comments on the secondary highway route number 1036, known as Hunter Street Road abandonment, which serves no public necessity and is no longer necessary as part of the secondary system of state highways. Is there a motion to authorize staff to schedule a public hearing?
So moved.
Reverend Jones has moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Wolfskill has seconded. Any discussion on this motion?
Mr. Chairman, one question. Where's the location upon the street?
It's near the kitty park, going into the kitty park by the Lee Grant Apartments.
Oh, okay.
I
Makes
thought it
sense.
was in that one we talked about before.
It is.
All right. Motion been made and seconded to schedule a public hearing for abandonment of Hunter Street, known as Route 1036. Mr. Carter?
Aye.
Mr. Hips?
Aye.
Mr. Whipskill? Reverend Jones?
Aye.
I vote aye also. All right, next is a request to transfer by consent $300,000 from the general fund to the wireless fund and appropriate to the following: 3606-7003 communications equipment, $300,000. Reference the purchase of a console for E911 dispatch. Staff recommends approval since there's no new local funds are required. Is there a motion to approve the transfer?
So moved.
Mr. Hips has moved. Is there a second? Mr. Wolfskill has seconded. Discussion? Okay, motion's been made and seconded to move from the general fund to the wireless fund, $300,000 to pay for the E911 dispatch console. Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Hips?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfskill? Reverend Jones?
Aye.
And I vote aye also. Next is consent to transfer $1 million from the general fund to the capital improvement reserve fund and appropriate to the following: 9104-7016 courthouse renovations. Reference the courthouse renovation project. Staff recommends approval as there's no new local funds are required. Is there a motion to transfer from the general fund to the capital improvement reserve fund, $1 million for courthouse renovations?
Mr. Hinkle,
Yes,
there is a correction. It
Okay.
is new local funds.
it is new?
Yes.
Oh, that's right, I see that. I read it wrong.
Well, I think it said no new.
Oh,
but, yeah, you read it right. We just had a.
okay. Oh, yeah, I was looking at the other line. All right. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Reverend Jones has moved to approve. Is there a second? Mr. Carter is second. All right, discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I got one thing here, if I can find it, darn it. I got a note here from, or a question. Somebody at Mr. Wolfskill's district. Somebody to transfer of funds from, I don't know, 23 to 24, 24 to 25. I can't find it now, darn it.
Is this relevant to the courthouse?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Mhm. I can't find it now, so we might as well go ahead. I'll
All right.
catch up with it later.
Motion made and seconded to approve the transfer of $1 million from the general fund to the capital improvement reserve fund. Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Hips?
Aye.
Ms. Whipskill? Reverend Jones?
Aye.
I vote aye also. Next is Commissioner Revenue refund request. Sarah Henderson, Commissioner of Revenue, is requesting the following to be paid from the 1209-5803 refunds to Shelley Denise Fleshman, $35 for 2024 personal property taxes she paid Lynchburg City and Appomattox County. Staff recommends approval of the refund. Transfer by consent from the general fund and supplement the 35 to the 1209-5803 account. Is there a motion to approve such transfer?
So moved.
Mr. Jones is moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Carter's seconded. Discussion? All right. The motion to move $35 from the general fund into the supplement, to a supplement account 1209-5803. Mr. Wolfskill. Aye. Reverend Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Hips.
Aye.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
I vote aye also. All righty, next is DSS Advisory Board, appointment members to serve a 4-year term on the Social Service Advisory Board. The following names have been submitted as potential candidates. Mrs. Susan Shutt, Children's Advocacy Center, Ms. Carla Lewis, Mrs. Margaret Wright, Mr. Anthony Train Johnson, and Mr. Tom Adams. Staff recommends appointment of these members to serve on the Social Advisory Board. I made a point to invite some of these people here in case the board doesn't know who they are. So we have Miss Margaret Wright back there. We have Mr. Tom Adams in the green T-shirt. We have young Anthony Jones up here and I guess that's it. So if any of the board members have any specific questions for those three, they're here to answer. If not, we'll accept a motion to appoint.
So moved.
Reverend Jones has moved to appoint these 5 individuals to the board. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Hips has seconded. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
in regards to Mrs. Susan Shutt, she is not a county resident. She resides in Campbell County. I made an inquiry on this, and from what I could gather from the information that was passed on to me was it's a good practice to get other people from neighboring counties and all to put on a board such as this. I, for one, don't see why that amounts to a hill of beans because we got Appomattox people to be put on boards here. We have tried to do this before, and especially on the EDA board, but you couldn't do it because it was outside the county appointment. So now it looks like we're gonna change gears and start incorporating people from outside Appomattox County. So if we appoint Mrs. Shutt, which, hey, she'd be excellent. She'd be excellent. I've known her since she was a kid. However, that doesn't go along with what previous boards, which I don't know how much weight that carries, but I know this, if she's appointed, then henceforth, in future appointments to boards can include outside the county personnel.
May I speak to that?
Well, Mr. Chairman, first.
Mr. Jones.
Yes, I think that having someone that is working in an agency that deals with children, I think it would be a plus for the county. That's my personal opinion, that would be an asset to have someone that's into children's advocacy as part of this advisory board.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wolfskill.
I believe the state handbook says it is profitable for local DSS boards to encourage people from outside the county that have this kind of expertise.
And I'm sure it does, Mr. Wolfskill, but that does not go along with what we have always done and now opens up the door for a new appointment location.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Rufskel.
I don't believe it does, because this is a specific sort of thing. It isn't just a board that doesn't address this sort of thing. This door is already open by the state handbook.
We Appomattox, not the state. We got our own government. We do our thing. And I don't know how it can aid us or help us by appointing somebody outside the county. And I am sure, like I say, I've known her since she was a baby. And she's good. She is really good. But it's this thing that hangs in the air that she is not a member of Appomattox County.
Well, I don't know that we have, well, I can see your point with the EDA board because that has to do with bringing business and stuff here to Appomattox County, and we would want that to be strictly Appomattox residents. But in this case, where we're looking at an advisory board to oversee a state program, and where the state advises that it's good to have a person, and it lists, I wish I had the manual here in front of me, because it lists several different outside organizations within the social services umbrella, that it's good to have one or two of those representatives on there, because the job is to evaluate the programs. Is our DSS program doing service to our residents? And so I can see the exception for this board, whereas I could not see it for EDA or zoning board of appeals or planning commission. I could see it no, in those areas, no. But in this one case personally, I can see it, Mr. Carter.
Mr. Chairman, I'm glad you said that, because we had that very instance where we could have appointed an EDA member that has a local business here in the county, just well thought of. She'd have been an absolute asset to the EDA, but because she lived outside the county, no go. So, apples and oranges.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Adams.
the local member handbook that the administrative board and advisory board are required to complete, as well as the online training, that's what you're referencing. It's created by the state, but it's a handbook for the local members that serve on those boards. And it gives you guidelines on how to appoint members, who you should appoint, who should serve. And to verify that, I did reach out to the regional director who stated, yes, that it's beneficial for agencies, partnering agencies of DSS to serve on the advisory board because they know the programs better and they have oversight. These other local boards we're talking about, a lot of them are governed by their own bylaws, and we have to appoint accordingly by the bylaws that are set forth for each committee or advisory board.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Carter.
I'd like to reply to that. As the county administrator said, the key word is guidelines. There's nothing mandatory about it. It may be nice, it may be a good thing, but this is Appomattox, not Campbell County or anywhere else, Nelson County. And I know that we got qualified people in this county to put on this so-called advisory board.
I will suggest that you can appoint up to 13 members, so if we have other residents that you deem would be a good fit, this is only, what, 5, so you can appoint 8 more.
And my question to you, Ms. Carter, do these other residents, do they work in these other social services agencies that the state recommends that we pick from?
Tell you the truth, I don't know. I wouldn't have the slightest idea.
I asked the county attorney, are we differing, are we setting opening a door for a policy fight later on, or what, do we have a policy fight, or?
No, sir. Some of the boards that were mentioned are actually in state code. So the BZA, for example, you do have to be a resident of the locality. So like, I think the BOE, same, they have requirements set out in the state code. So I don't think it would be a problem. And this person isn't being considered because of where she lives. It's because of what she does. And you all don't have a child advocacy center here, and you're lucky to have access to one. So it's not where she lives, it's her job. So you all can appoint her or choose not to. It's up to you.
All righty, motion's been seconded, approved, or made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? All right, Mr. Wolfskill.
Aye.
Mr. Reverend Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Hips.
Aye.
Mr. Carter.
No.
I vote aye also. Welcome to the board. All right, next we have the consent agenda, which includes approval of all bills, minutes, supplemental appropriations, line item transfers, fund transfers. Any item on the consent agenda shall be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member prior to the vote on the consent agenda. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be considered by the board individually in order in which they were removed from the consent agenda immediately following consideration of the agenda. Any questions, changes on the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion been made by Mr. Hips, seconded by Reverend Jones to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Mr. Wolfskill, what say you? Reverend Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Hips?
Aye.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
I vote aye also. Consent agenda has been approved. Next, we have the attorney's report.
I do not have anything, sir.
No attorney's report.
It's a good thing.
All right, how about the administration report?
Yes, sir, I've got the report before you. If you want to just review it, if you have questions, I'm available to address those questions. I think we've had good staff reports this evening that addressed a lot of stuff.
Any questions for the county administrator? All right, thank you for the good report. Next is the Appomattox County Real Estate Reassessment. Attached for the copy for the board's review is a copy of the news release to be published in the local newspaper and on social media concerning the real estate assessment being performed by Pearson's Appraisal Services, Inc. Any questions on the news release of reassessments, which I've already had people ask about? All righty, not hearing anything, then I guess next is supervisory concerns. Mr. Wolfskill. Reverend Jones.
Nothing.
Mr. Hips.
No, sir.
Mr. Carter.
None.
All right, do we have anything for closed session? Yes, we do. All righty,
Are you ready?
ready.
Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Appomattox County desires to discuss in a closed meeting the following matters: discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body concerning the county attorney and Department of Social Services. Consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the public body regarding actual or probable litigation where such consultation in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body regarding a regional authority. Consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring legal advice regarding the Department of Social Services. Whereas pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1, A7, and A8 of the Code of Virginia, such discussions may occur in a closed meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Appomattox County does hereby authorize discussion of the aforestated matters in a closed meeting. I just need that in the form of a motion.
Mr. Upkill has moved that we go into closed session. Is there a second?
Second.
Reverend Jones has seconded. What say you, Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Hips?
Aye.
Reverend Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Westfield? I vote yes also, so we may ask the public to please vacate the room. Yes. Okay.